Today we're going to be reading from Isaiah chapter 65, verses 17 through 25. Hear the word of the Lord. For I am about to create new heavens and a new earth. The former things shall not be remembered or come to mind, but be glad and rejoice forever in what I am creating. For I am about to create Jerusalem as a joy, and its people as a delight. I will rejoice in Jerusalem and delight in my people. No more shall the sound of weeping be heard in it, or the cry of distress. No more shall there be in it an infant that lives but a few days, or an old person who does not live out a lifetime. For one who dies at 100 years will be considered a youth, and one who falls short of 100 will be considered accursed. They shall build houses and inhabit them. They shall plant vineyards and eat their fruit. They shall not build and another inhabit. They shall not plant and another eat. For like the days of a tree shall the days of my people be, and my chosen shall long enjoy the work of their hands. They shall not labor in vain or bear children for calamity, for they shall be offspring blessed by the Lord, and their descendants as well. Before they call, I will answer. While they are yet speaking, I will hear. The wolf and the lamb shall feed together. The lion shall eat straw like the ox, but the serpent, its food, shall be dust. They shall not hurt or destroy on all my holy mountain. This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
Those who have ears, listen to my story. You who have eyes, watch for where the Spirit may be found. I was a contractor. I built houses. I was good at it too. I loved to work with my hands, loved the satisfying feeling of exhaustion as I hit the couch every day after a 12-hour day. I loved being able to walk away every day, looking at the clear progress that I and my crew had made. I loved it, even when I was building homes in the suburbs, bigger than the apartment I rented, knowing I could never afford to buy a home like the one I had made. I didn't mind that I couldn't afford my own handiwork. I found fulfillment in the work itself, not whether it made me rich or not, you know. Christmas is my favorite season.
Amen.
I've always loved hearing about Jesus' dad being a carpenter. It helps me feel connected to the story that Joseph and Jesus likely had back problems like me, calloused hands like me, nostrils filled with sawdust like me, and to watch Jesus be celebrated made me feel like I was being celebrated in some way, you know? I love to hear the creation stories too.
Amen.
Especially that one in Genesis 1. When I hear that story, I like to imagine God in boots, tool belt on, an air compressor humming in the background, breathing in the smell of fresh drywall and diligently working on the next project each day until the earth, like my houses, was built and ready to be inhabited.
Amen.
God created light. I poured a foundation. God created a void in the waters for air. I put 2x4s together to make a frame. God made dry land. I put down a hardwood floor. Just felt similar, you know. But then, the work started to slow down. It happens. So I didn't worry about it too much, But then a lot of people in my crew started to leave for other jobs. You gotta do what you gotta do to support yourself and your family. So I don't blame them for looking for other gigs that paid more. But I didn't have anything other than this gig. I didn't go to college, and it felt like the only thing I was good at was contracting. What other jobs was I going to get? So I took on longer days, worked harder and faster than usual, even when my body protested after years of already brutal use. What else was I going to do? I was stuck. It felt like I was doing nothing but work and eat and sleep. I was making things work, making ends meet, but I couldn't get this nagging sense of fear out of my head. Instead of listening to that little voice that told me to be worried, I just worked harder. Drowned it out, I slipped. It's stupid. I wasn't even up that high, but I hit my hip just right and shattered it. I had health insurance, but not the good kind, so you know how much that helped me. Plus, I couldn't finish my jobs, and I lost clients. By the time I was able to limp around again, it was already too late. I was already in too much debt. I didn't really have a choice, So I gave up my apartment. I couldn't afford it anymore. I sold my stuff. I needed the cash, and started parking my truck and my trailer overnight at the Walmart or under the bridge, or sometimes just at the work site if I could get away with it. But that was the worst option. Not because it wasn't convenient, it was convenient, but because it felt like all of a sudden those big suburban houses were mocking me, They told me how ironic it was that I built them, but I could never have them. I could never sleep in them, and instead of being surrounded by my own handiwork, I was steaming up the windows of my truck, trying to get comfortable enough in the passenger seat to get a few hours of sleep before the next day of hopeless work on a magnificent house that paid me just enough to buy food and pay down my debt, the things that used to feel like home for me. Sawdust in my nose, splinters in my fingers, the hum of that air compressor, the smell of new drywall. It now felt oppressive, taunting, angry, Yet in the midst of a time that felt like a living hell of despair, vainly working for diminishing returns, at a loss of options, and even when I saw options, I was unable to generate the motivation I needed to take the chance to pursue it. In the middle of all that, in the midst of questioning if God truly saw me, God showed me in some small ways that I was not completely abandoned and without hope, whether I believed it or not at the time,
Amen.
Someone from my church told me about an affordable apartment nearby. A friend wrote me a letter of reference in my application with a big contracting company with benefits. Some of the other people in job sites would bring zucchini, tomatoes, or peppers from their gardens that they couldn't use and they didn't want to throw away. Although I wasn't always paying attention, there were tens, maybe hundreds of little acts that didn't single-handedly change my situation, but slowly and taken together had a massive impact,
Amen.
Eventually, without me realizing it at first, I had a job that could support me. I had a comfortable home. My debts were shrinking, and as that was all becoming tangible, I took a breath, Breath. 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 And then in church one day, the pastor read from the Bible. For I am about to create new heavens and a new earth. And in her next breath, she said, be glad and rejoice forever in what I am creating. And a big breath, bigger than any I had breathed before, rushed into my lungs as I realized God did not start and stop creating in Genesis chapter 1. God is still creating. Can I hear an amen? God is inviting me to be a creator with God right now, today, when I go back to cut the board the exact right length. Rather than being okay with a board that's just a little bit too short. When I received excess veggies, when people in church treated me with respect and dignity, when I was given the lead on a new apartment, when the doctor repaired my hip, when the administrator at the hospital fought with my insurance to get them to cover as much as they were supposed to cover in my treatment, when a family moved into the house I built and planted flowers for the butterflies and for the bees. In all the minute and easily missed ways, God was still actively creating, building, working.
Amen.
The promise of heaven that I grew up with in my church was not just about a realm of clouds and angels that I go to when I die. No. The promise of heaven is the ways that we all allow God to use us in God's radical and continual acts of creating for the good of each other, the good of our earth,
Amen.
So now I read the promises of Isaiah and the rest of the Bible differently. It's not an abstract future that I will see if I'm good enough. No, it's not. It's so much more.
Amen.
The promises of God are a blueprint, just like the ones that I used when I was building. The promises of God are an invitation to all of creation, to join in the radical, creative acts of God, knowing that even if we can't single-handedly solve all the problems in the world, we might be able to solve one small problem at a time. And if we keep it up, if we do it together, if we encourage each other, we might just see heaven.
Amen.
Here, God with us, Emmanuel. So I guess what I'm saying is keep up the good work. Thus ends the story.